My name is Anthony Douglas. This is Number One Contender. Boy, I tell you what, AG, we just had an awesome freaking Saturday night. It doesn't get any better. We had All In. Were you all in? Were you all in for this thing?
I was, man. I was looking forward to it. I unfortunately couldn't go. My cousins went, but yeah, man, there's a lot of hype behind this, I think.
There was a lot of hype behind this. We're going to talk about everything. We're going to talk about all the amazing events, the problems, the criticism, all into the future of pro wrestling and everything going forward. But before we get into it, I got to get this out of the way because I want to let you guys know about some cool things that are going on with Number One Contender. We have a very special guest coming up, and this is going to be awesome. We're gonna wait a little bit through the episode to tell you who our special guest is going to be, just because we want it. We want you to stay tuned and listen to the whole thing. So we'll give you the guest here in a little bit. But I do want to let you guys know that with Number One Contender, we are going to have this available anywhere that you want to listen to it. That's why we started this angle. I know that you wanted to, like, when you pitched me to do Number One Contender, your idea was to make it bigger than just YouTube videos, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just about using all these different platforms that are out there, man. I think there's a lot of platforms and a lot of people have a million ways to watch it. And, there's a lot of things I want to personally talk about. So what better way to do that than do it with you, who also likes to talk wrestling and entertainment and culture and the same shit that I'm into. So yeah, definitely.
So because of this, we don't want it to be just a YouTube thing or just a podcast thing. It's going to be like all kinds of stuff. So we do have it available on Anchor, Breaker, Google Podcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Spotify. That's right, Spotify, Stitcher, and iTunes, and YouTube, and maybe Twitch. We're working on the live format soon, but that's something we definitely want to do. But we wanted to make it easy and accessible for you to find, so it's not like come over to our YouTube or come over, just wherever you want to find this. We want you to be able to get this into your ears. So one of the things that we are going to be doing, one of the other big announcements that we have, is that we actually officially announced today that we're starting a Patreon. That's right. And I know that we've been talking about this, AG, again, but the way that we want to do this, we want to give exclusive perks. We're going to be adapting this. We're also going to be taking your guys' feedback. It'll be a nice way for you guys to converse with us. We're going to have a Discord server just for the Patreon users only. And then we'll do some live content, some early stuff. And that's the reason we want to do this, because we want to have like one place that you guys can go as far as like a community, and then you can listen to it wherever you want. So that's what it is. So it's not going to be a thing that you have to support. We'll talk more about the Patreon in the future, but we just wanted to put it out there. I wanted to put that out there because I know, AG, you got a million ideas for Patreon. So I think we're onto something here with this Number One Contender.
100%. And honestly, I look at it more as like building a community versus building a platform with 1 million trillion views. Obviously the views and stuff would be nice, but I really just want people to come together and just, be able to talk and hang out. And I think that's what we're going to do. I think Patreon is going to be a great way for people to kind of get in tune with what we're doing, but they can also get involved. And nothing is better than getting involved, with something like this, because I think the sky's the limit with this type of thing. So definitely a lot of potential. Yeah,
what's cool about this is that we don't want to be that podcast that has like 1 million advertisements, like, oh, you listen 5 minutes and there's another advertisement. Oh, there's another. That's why we kind of want to do the Patreon thing. We can, actually have you guys advertise as well, but we don't want to have this be one of those things where like, all right, 5 minutes later, we got to take another ad break. 5 minutes later, we want to take another ad break. So we just want to keep it like simple, easy, and just so you can listen to. So we got all that garbage out of the way. And I hate talking about that kind of stuff because I just feel like it takes away from the core show that we're trying to build here.
Yeah, and it's the beginning stages. But with that being said, dude, I think we just got to talk about All In, because I couldn't sleep last night, man. That was crazy. Dude,
All In was probably, and this is a bold statement to say, probably the biggest wrestling show of 2018. Even bigger, as big maybe, WrestleMania could be a thing. I don't know. I've seen people say, I've seen the internet talk about it, but it was a great show top to bottom. I mean, when you think about it, this show was so important that there was the AAA World Champion, the NWA World Champion, the Ring of Honor Champion. Like, we also had champions from Impact Wrestling were there. We also had the New Japan Pro Wrestling World Champion there. That's how important this event was. All those major champions were there. And it was the biggest show of all time. And I think it just gets from top to bottom, great show. Great show.
Yeah, so biggest show of all time is a little bit of a stretch, just slightly. But it was definitely a big show, and it was definitely a show that I would say made its mark in professional wrestling history. I don't think there's anybody who's going to question that. I think 20, 30 years from now, we are looking at the first, I think this would be the first key part in which, if there's ever been like a threat to WWE, and if WWE were to ever go away in 30 years from now, if we were to look back at this event, we would say this probably had an influence on the start of WWE going downhill. So the way I kind of look at this was WWE versus everybody else. And it looks like right now, based on All In, it looked like everybody else using their brains, using their resources. It looks like they know exactly what they're doing. And they kind of said it best, no one company just owns pro wrestling. We are pro wrestling. And I think that was the perfect thing to be said right after All In concluded.
I think so too. Like it's that underground movement. It's almost like bringing me back to like the territory days, right? Because you got so many good promotions. You got Lucha Underground, you got Mexico, you got Japan, Europe is killing it. The UK, you got like Chicago, you got Florida, you got Philly was always good. New York, like there's just so many good like areas of pro wrestling, and to be able to get all of them together and just kind of say, you know what, this is like us. We're not owned by anybody. We are doing our own thing. We are doing this right now. And with the internet, like it's a perfect time. This is exactly what I have been. I thought this when Impact Wrestling was going through their phases and they didn't have really a TV network and they were doing all this thing. I was like, you don't need a television network to put on an amazing show here. You just need the internet. And if you use the internet correctly, as they did here with their storylines that went on here, they build it through being the elite. And then they put it on with Kody and the Young Bucks were the figureheads of this whole thing. And they took this one, they went up to plate and they hit it out of the park here. And what an amazing show it was. Yeah,
there was I think you're pretty spot on. It was definitely an amazing show, Tony. The problem that I have with All In, and maybe I'm just jumping into things way too early, I feel like, and in certain ways, I mean, don't get me wrong, the show is very successful, it's very good, but in certain ways, they did some things on the show that perhaps having that corporate backing would have never happened. And, I mean, it kind of frustrates me a little bit because I think for how long the show was, I think that was kind of a complaint that I had. It was a little too long.
Right.
But we had a main event match that was fantastic, get cut early. And I think you already know exactly what I'm going to jump into. If not, I'll just say it. I think Joey Ryan is a great wrestler. I think he's a great superstar. I like his gimmick. I like the storylines that he's doing. But I don't think it was necessary to have a whole bunch of flying penises walking down the ramp and like. So it bothers me.
So on one hand, I see what you're saying about like, okay, so they did that giant like penis thing where he came out, the resurrection as they called it. I get where you're still though. That's Joey Ryan. That's his gimmick. That's his character. He lives by that thing. The Joey Ryan is professionally sponsored by YouPorn.com. That's the guy. That's his gimmick. Like penises are his. So you can't take that away from him.
Tony, but here's the problem. We're talking about a fantastic show from top to bottom. The guy is a superstar. I mean, he's great. I was a big fan of his work in Impact. Like, that's not my issue. I think my issue is because of this segment. I would say this segment's probably the one segment that could be blamed for taking so long. And, I think that's kind of the reason why we missed out on a potentially even better main event. But I just think in pro wrestling, it doesn't always have to be all seriousness. It's cool to have laughs and jokes. But I think that right there, I just think that was a little too far. And I think what they did essentially in this situation, I think they wasted people's time. You know what I mean? Like, there was nothing to gain out of that. I get it if you watch Being the Elite and, like, there's a storyline with it. I understand, like, that's kind of what they're doing. And look, storytelling wise, kudos to them. They did better than WWE in that situation. But I just think for what this event was, it was a very serious pro wrestling event. I think there was a lot of cool stuff they did. I just think that part right there, I don't know. I almost kind of felt like it was a mocking of The Undertaker. And I don't think that's acceptable, in my opinion. I don't think pro wrestling really has room for that in a stage where 10,000 plus people are seated in an arena, let alone, whoever knows the buy rate for this pay-per-view. But
so then you're saying that like Joey Ryan should have just been booked in a match, and if he would have done his regular stick, like, his gimmick and stuff in a match, it would have been fine. But the whole like, let's mock the Undertaker and do this whole thing was too much for you. I mean, I kind of see, I kind of don't. I think still it was Joey Ryan. It was doing what he did. He went out there, he entertained people, and that's what it is at the end of the day. It's entertainment. I mean, wrestling purists like Jim Cornette and people were mad about it. But again, if let's say this, then let me ask you, because
Sure.
there's a very good tweet that went out here today, and it's by one man who gets a lot of controversy here, but it's Mr. Vince Russo.
Okay.
And he had a very interesting tweet. He said, "Congratulations to everybody involved in All In. They did it right. The passion was there. The money was spent. The chances were taken. Kudos. I only walk away asking one thing. What if Vince Russo would have written a show where 10 PPs marched down to the ring in unison?"
There you go. Yep, everybody would have flamed Vince Russo. And I don't even like Vince Russo. He blocked me on Twitter. But let me tell you, Tony, like this is the issue that I have. He's not lying. If he would have done that, it would have been and that's where people are hypocritical in pro wrestling. But like, it's not. Look, Joey Ryan's gimmick is cool. It's fun. He does the little porn plex or whatever. Like, his dick is that strong. People's hands break when they hold it or whatever.
Right,
like, it's a really, really weird thing, but it's over. Like, people, for some reason, enjoy that. I don't have a knock on that. I just think I feel like they kind of mocked The Undertaker, which I don't think that's what their intention was, but I think, kind of doing that gimmick, I think it took up so much time as it was. I think it was kind of unnecessary. I don't feel like it made the product better. Like, I don't think people walked away from All In saying, yeah, that was really cool. We got to see 10 guys in penis costumes. Like, that's not what I heard from people when they went to All In. Every person that I personally knew went there, they said, man, I got to see, Okada and Marty Scurll have, like, an incredible match.
Yeah.
I got to see Rey Mysterio and Kota Ibushi. And then I had people complain that the match was cut off and they can tell it was shortened. I think a lot of people were upset about that. And it sucks because a pay-per-view like this was really good from top to bottom. But not one person walked away with that was like, I never heard somebody say, listen, man, I'm really glad these guys came out in penis costumes and,
right.
Whatever. But at the end of the day, All In, I think, was successful. I think All In, too, if you're going to have Joey Ryan, maybe just keep the dick in the pants,
Right. I mean, I get it. It's just, it comes to a point where, like, I understand what you're saying, but I also think Joey Ryan needs to do that kind of stuff. It's what people are talking about, especially, like, we're talking about it, so he's doing something right, So it's
but we're talking about it, but we're not necessarily talking about it in a good way. I'm not, at least.
It's such like a double-edged sword here because I want to back the Joey Ryan train because I think he's very entertaining. He's going out there making a name for himself, doing his thing, being very unique compared to anything else. But then again, you have this thing that takes up so much time. If they would have cut that, would that have maybe done it? Maybe they could have cut another match, like the Matt Cross MJF match. Yeah, it was a good match. It wasn't announced for the card. I like Matt Cross. I thought the MJF match was great. Would they have cut that? That would have been 9 minutes off of that. That would have gave the main event 10 more minutes. We could have a 21-minute match. Maybe would have satisfied people at the end. The biggest, like, I guess what we're gonna go negatives here before we talk about all the positives, right? Let's just get that out of the way because
Sure.
you started with that. The biggest problem was we didn't get that big ending celebration with the confetti that came down. There was confetti. There was people hugging in the ring. They thanked everybody. It was supposed to be that feel-good moment at the end of the show, and we didn't get that on pay-per-view. They were like, all right, we got to go. See you later. And it just went on.
Well, listen, if Joey Ryan wasn't dicking around, maybe you would have been able to see that. That's all I got to say, man. Listen, All In was cool. All In was cool. Joey Ryan's cool. My opinion really doesn't mean shit. But Joey Ryan, like I said, I think just that part took away from the show. And to kind of go off of that, I think You know, when you look at that small little problem of being cut off at 11 o'clock, I think it does kind of it turns a small problem into a big problem. And you know, I'm a wrestling fan, so I know a lot of people are like, oh well, I like the entertainment stuff, but you know, at the end of the day, like I want to watch pro wrestling. I was looking forward to seeing some athletes that I haven't ever been able to see live. And for me, I feel like when the show got cut off and they're doing this speech, like it really sucks that we had to find out from Twitter, because that feel good moment happened last night. I mean, we're talking about an arena that sold out. I think All In, you know, aside from the Joey Ryan thing, I don't think there was many problems. I know you mentioned some technical issues in the beginning.
Yeah, it was like the WGN feed was kind of weird in the pre-show, but they had audio issues with that. But then I think like once they got to the main show, it was fine. And then also trying to load it right away, because Fight had so many people trying to get on that it took just like a second to get it to go. But other than that, I think it was good. You know, talking about criticism about this show before we, you know, talk about the positive, because we're still on this negative, I want to talk about fellow YouTuber friend Brandon Does Everything, because he had a pretty interesting tweet here. And this is like a conversation that I think needs to be had here, because we talked about it at the top of the show. This is WWE versus everybody else, and we got to see everybody else. So he comes out and says, I'm going to be honest with you. The Indies isn't for me. All In is better than the majority of what anything WWE can do, but I find myself bored. I was only interested in like 2 or 3 matches, and they've already happened tonight. The show's been great, but I'd rather just watch highlight videos of what happened on the Indies on YouTube and Twitter. I'm going to finish watching the show because I paid my $40, LMAO. So what do you think about this statement where there's these people with this WWE mindset who they want their storyline, they want their build, they want their payoff here, they want they know who the characters are, know their stories, follow them, and then get this. So seeing a show like All In where you might only know, you know, maybe the big names like the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, Okada, you know, at best. I mean, there's a lot of people like they had a whole Flip Gordon segment here where he was, you know, if you watched him trying to get booked through the internet and Twitter and all that, you know it. But if you didn't, you could care less when he got against Jay Lethal. I mean, what is your take on this? Like, it's people that are WWE known, like they know WWE, but then watching a show like this kind of turns them off.
Well, there's 2 different kinds of fans. There's your hardcore, I got to know everything at all time kind of fan. And then there's your casual WWE fan who at this point in time, I would say more casual fans are obviously because of the internet. They're starting to look a little bit more into pro wrestling. Mm-hmm. So I think Brandon kind of fits that category, as I do as well. I think I kind of take sides. I think I take pieces from both sides. So like with WWE, you know, I know people that just criticize WWE all the time. They're like, oh, there's no build. This build was terrible. This storyline was crappy. This, and this. Like, there's a million complaints that they have, right?
Yeah.
But the problem is they still tune in. And the reason why they tune in is because they want to see something different happen within that storyline. So WWE automatically gets you engaged almost all the time. And the whole rating argument that people have doesn't really make sense anymore because people aren't watching TV in general. You know, people have watched less and less TV throughout the time.
Right.
And with WWE, they put their highlights on YouTube or Hulu and Twitter, and there's like a million ways to watch WWE stuff. There's times where I miss it on DVR, I just fast forward, or I check Twitter, I get my information. But then there's part of me where it's like, okay, I do like to know a little bit of what's going on. Obviously, not only for like my video career and like making videos and stuff, but there's people in the indie scene that I have never heard of in my life. And I would never hear of them if I didn't have access to it. And this was something I talked about in one of my videos recently where I said WWE is the most accessible product anywhere in pro wrestling. Like, New Japan's cool, but you can't really defend New Japan when it doesn't have a weekly TV show in the United States live like Monday Night Raw. It's and some people say that could hurt the product, but the fact that it's not as easily accessible, you don't know everybody from New Japan. You don't know how big of a deal some of these guys are. You know, for some people, they think, you know, Kenny Omega is the biggest name in pro wrestling right now. PWI says he's like the #1 superstar or whatever. But the issue that people are starting to forget is that there's people that religiously watch New Japan and they would say Kenny Omega isn't the biggest star in New Japan. But the reason why he's #1 in PWI is because his influence in Japan and his influence in the United States makes him bigger crossover. So it's like, I get the argument people have. I think what Brandon said was perfectly fine, and I'm going to kind of throw it back to you. You know, imagine this. Imagine if you didn't spend $40 and you were to look on Twitter. You know, would you be able to confidently say you know every person on that match card, every person in that battle royal? Would you be able to say, oh yeah, like looking on Twitter, oh cool, you know, Flip Gordon won the battle royal. Like obviously we know who Flip Gordon is because we pay attention to it. But if you're somebody who doesn't watch indie wrestling, you know, you'd probably be like, oh, Flip Gordon won. Okay, cool. Like that's nothing. So I think they cater to a very specific niche, and I think that's kind of where Brandon maybe makes the most sense in that case. I don't think he follows that too much, and I don't blame him. You know, I think some of these matches it's kind of hard to get invested into. You know, it's one thing to have really good pro wrestling, but storylines, you know, that's one thing that WWE always, you know, you can turn off WWE for 3 weeks and still watch on the 4th week and have an understanding of what's going on. If you were to watch one live pay-per-view like All In, it's really hard to get caught up on it.
You're right about that, but I also do feel like they did cater to the fan service. They did fan service here. Because Stephen Amell, if you know anything from his WWE stuff, you know him from Mainstream. He had a great match with Christopher Daniels. You have to know some of the people on this card. Like Christopher Daniels been around. Cody, you might remember him. Nick Aldous, you might remember. Jay Lethal, Omega. Some of those guys you do know. Plus, they gave us, like I said, that fan service. So we had DDP delivering the Diamond Cutter. We saw that happen. We saw Jay Lethal pull out Black Machismo, so people remember that. And then, you know, I get it. I understand what you're saying. Flip Gordon, we know because we watched it. We understood. He was trying to get booked. He didn't get booked, but then he finally came out in a mask, and it was this whole character. If you didn't know that, I mean, at least you got the Battle Royal at the pre-show where you knew Flip Gordon came out, and then they did the whole finish with the bully race. So it was like a mini storyline tied in one night. But I do see what you're saying. I think the best way to describe this, and this is not a knock on anybody that is on either side of this. You said there's like casual and then there's like hardcore fans.
Yeah.
I'd go as far as saying there are WWE fans and then there's pro wrestling fans.
Yes.
Now, pro wrestling fans can be WWE fans and WWE fans can be pro wrestling fans. But I'm talking about just, you know, there's those guys like the guy in the green shirt who's front row every WWE pay-per-view. He is a WWE fan. You won't catch him at All In. He'll be at the WWE shows, but he won't be at All In. Now, Brock Lesnar guy, he was at All In. He follows all that stuff. He's the guy that's there at All In. He'll be the hardcore guy that's there, but he'll also be the hardcore guy that's there at the WWE stuff. So he would be what I would say a pro wrestling fan. And the thing is that it's more that you just follow all the stuff on Twitter. You follow these guys personally. You see their career. Being a pro wrestling fan, you don't have to watch every New Japan show. You don't have to watch every independent show, but it's just kind of knowing who these guys are and then kind of being able to see them as they are presented, because that's the biggest thing here. Because if you've seen any of the Young Bucks, you know any of them, you know what you're going to get with the Young Bucks in a match, and that's kind of the thing there. And I think what was going on with Brandon is there were some guys that were on the card. Hey, I know Jay Lethal. Hey, I know Kenny Omega. Hey, I know Okada, but I don't really know the rest of these people. So that's where it kind of turns him off. So, I mean, I get both sides of it, but again, I think it's time to take the blinders off and just kind of accept it, because we're getting something that's different and it's different. Is it better than WWE? I don't know. WWE has their own way of doing things. They have their stories. They have their formula, and their formula works. That's why they're the number one in the world. But I think it's time for some people to take a chance and take those blinders off and kind of just see everything and allow it. And it kind of makes me mad. It makes me boil inside when I hear people that say they dislike this and they're bored with it. It's like, I can't see that personally from my standpoint. Yeah. I can't see how you can be bored with this. There was so much like broad stuff here. There was Diamond Dallas Page, Diamond Cutter. There were penises. There was great wrestling. There was women's matches that were better than, you know, any women's match anywhere. Like, I don't know. To me, honestly, I can't see that. I can't see where you could be bored with the show. But I guess if you don't know who these people are, I don't know. But I've grown up with like independent wrestling. I know all about independent wrestling. I seek out that stuff. I look at stuff. I watch PWG. I watch, you know, all the independents all around. I go to my local indies. You know, that's the kind of thing I do. So that's why I come from this aspect, and I get people coming from the WWE aspect too.
It's amazing that you said that, because one thing that just popped into my mind, and I kind of thought about it for a second, but like, I never really watched independent wrestling to see independent wrestling grow. I always watched independent wrestling to see where these guys come from before they go to WWE. Like, before it was just TNA and WWE for me. Like, that's all I watched growing up. So, growing up through the Attitude Era and then, of course, you know, NWA, TNA, like, now you see some of these guys make it so far. You know, back in the day, like, I didn't watch indie wrestling. Why? Because it wasn't accessible to me. Now we have the internet, it is. But, like, watching NXT, you know, imagine being strictly a WWE fan and you're like, okay, who's Keith Lee? But imagine going to the show in Detroit where Keith Lee is having his last independent show. And now you're like, hey, why is everybody, you know, getting excited about this guy? If it's your first independent show and you see Keith Lee taking a standing ovation and everybody's happy for him, clearly you're feeling like you're part of something. I think that's what indie wrestling did. They brought people together and said, listen, like, we might be the launch pad for these guys to become new stars. And for the last several years, that one company for them to go to is WWE. I think right now the end-all be-all isn't WWE. I don't think you need to jump to WWE as much as I would like to see some of these guys go back to WWE or debut there. Yeah. I feel like that's not needed anymore. I think indie wrestling itself has taken its own approach to where you could just be a big star without them. And I know yesterday we kind of talked about it on the live watch party with Macho, but it's like I almost feel like Kenny Omega's at the stage where he's not even going to be – he's going to be like a Sting. Like, it's going to take him forever to get to WWE. And people are going to have those matches just like how people want Taker and Sting. Like, I want Kenny Omega and Roman Reigns. Like, to me, that just would be an incredible match. And I feel like that could be the big story 5 years from now, 6 years from now, 10 years from now. Hey, we never got that Kenny Omega and Roman Reigns match. And you know the fans would shit on Roman Reigns, but people would love nothing more than Kenny Omega and Roman Reigns to have a big match because you're talking about the biggest indie star and the biggest WWE star. Like, WWE groomed Roman Reigns to be their guy, and Kenny Omega came from the outside and was already that guy. So, like, there's potential within the indies, and I think you know, if we could just kind of transition into the good of All In, I think right then and there it's clear to say All In was like the WrestleMania for outside WWE. I think we finally got that big experience that WWE didn't have to put on, and thankfully, you know, New Japan, ROH, Impact, they didn't even do it. Like, we're talking 3 guys with their own money, their own resources. They put together one of the biggest events in pro wrestling. And I'm not talking big event in terms of just, you know, the seats, right? 10,000 sold out. Yeah. Like, I'm talking about the general population was, I mean, they saw on Twitter it was trending, and they're like, wait, what? Like, what's going on? Like, there's a huge wrestling show. I know people that don't even watch wrestling, and they saw it trending. They're like, I got to check this out.
Yeah, I had people that were like, "What is this All In thing I keep hearing about?" And it's like, dude, you gotta pay attention. This is huge. It was number one trend on Twitter worldwide.
Basically, what I told people, I'm like, listen, so you have to imagine a guy who wasn't even a world champion, you know, in WWE. Like, you gotta look at a guy like Cody Rhodes, and I try to explain to them. I'm like, imagine a guy who's in the WWE who he's kind of like in the mid card. He doesn't really do anything crazy, right? He's not that big of a star. But he left WWE and he did something bigger than WWE. Well, this is the world congratulating and coming together to say, listen, you know, like, as a free society, you don't need a major corporation backing you. You know, I like to compare indie wrestling to indie music. Like, you don't have to be a famous rapper to be a famous rapper. You can be underground and still be famous. And it's almost like indie wrestling is kind of taking that approach. All In was, I would say, it probably... in 2 to 3 years, it could generate more buzz than a WrestleMania. You know, and WrestleMania will always have the corporate backing, but All In will always have the true fans that appreciate pro wrestling, that appreciate the sport, and appreciate their creative freedom. Because at the end of the day, they did what they wanted.
Right. So we'll kind of run down the card here and talk about some of the matches. I don't want to get like a full review because that's not what this show is. It's not a review show, but we will talk about some of the good, bad, and ugly here. But pre-show, we had SoCal Uncensored versus Briscoe Brothers. They went over SoCal. Flip Gordon won the Battle Royal, eliminating Bully Ray, and then that played off later. Matt Cross defeated MJF. Christopher Daniels defeated Stephen Amell, which I guess if you want to talk about it, I think Stephen Amell was amazing. Like, I did not think he was going to perform as good as he did. Jerry Lynn was special ref, so he let this go and do whatever. Stephen Amell did an elbow drop through a table. And, dude, if any, like, I know they said it on commentary, but any major promotion would be lucky to get a guy like Stephen Amell on their roster. He would be amazing if he could go either to WWE, Impact, ROH, whatever it is. I think that dude could be a mega star if he wanted to be a pro wrestler. What do you think, Ango?
It's so funny that you say that because I literally think the same thing. I wanted to hate on the idea of Stephen Amell so bad. I hated the idea of him at SummerSlam. I did. Because I was like, man, like this guy, like who is he? Like I don't even know the show that he's on. You know what I mean?
It just gives you that. When the way WWE presented it was such a WWE thing where it's like, oh, this is our celebrity match, and it's like that always gives off that bad taste. So like hearing that he was going to go one-on-one with Daniels, my interest was piqued here. Can he do a full one-on-one match? That's what I was wondering.
I almost felt like he was part of the boys.
Yeah, for sure.
I think, like he was part of the boys. It was almost like. You know, it's almost like he did this forever. And I read something that Christopher Daniels put, but he's like, you know, there's guys with 20 years experience who would have never been able to pull off what Stephen Amell did. And the best part about Christopher Daniels and what he said on Twitter, he said something along the lines of he said something along the lines of Stephen Amell basically, like, he had to film 14 hours a day. After filming, he dedicated almost all his time to, like, dieting, working out, and training. So, you know, the guy had a great look for pro wrestling, by the way. I think look-wise, he would definitely fit in. Mm-hmm. But it's almost like this guy actually likes what he's doing. You know, I feel like when he did it with WWE, it would almost look like, okay, like this sounds like a cool idea, and I'm going to have fun. And, like, he wasn't, like, not impressive. You know, he looked good at SummerSlam, but, like, this almost showed, like, this guy can obviously, he knows what he's doing. He's part of the guys, like, he probably fits in the locker room. They're probably trying to help him make this look good. And on top of that, he's making them look good, and he's making himself look good. Stephen Amell, honestly, he would be my MVP of the night just because I don't think I expected that.
Yeah, for sure. Then we had Tessa Blanchard, Chelsea Green, Madison, Rayne, and Britt Baker. Cool to see Madison Rayne as she's going to be in the Mae Young Classic. And that's cool. Yep. Chelsea Green did the woo woo woo, which is really sweet. The Zack Ryder right there, that was sweet. And then and then we saw the Adam Cole theme song came back, brother, so that was cool. Tessa Blanchard went over. Then we had Kody versus Nick Aldis. This was a really good heavyweight type match. So, like, if you would ever book anything WWE style, I think this was it right there. If you're talking about heavyweight style WWE wrestling, Kody and Nick Aldis was there. And I think this was Kody trying to prove that, if I could be a main eventer, this is, like, I could hold a brand here, and he was able to win. We had DDP, Brandy Rhodes, Glacier, Tommy Dreamer were in Cody's corner, and Jeff Jarrett, Samuel Shaw, Sean Daivari, and Tim Storm were in Nick Aldis' corner. What a crazy mix of people here, like Glacier and Jeff Jarrett, and like they were all together in the same like segment here. How great was this? Like DDP delivered the Diamond Cutter. They had Earl Hebner ref in this thing too, and then Kody took a bump here, and then it looked like he was really hurt because Hebner threw up the X, but then it was just, Kody was busted open, so we knew what was going on there. But again, this was just your typical like heavyweight match, and now Kody is the new NWA champion here. So what does that say for this? Is like Kody the number one independent guy now with NWA on its back? Is like the NWA going to make a comeback here? Is this a big moment for NWA now?
It is. This pretty much puts NWA back on the map. And first, one thing that you actually missed out on when you were talking about this, this was in the middle of the card, and this was, I mean, the way they presented the matchups. They had the guys come out with their teams. It felt like a professional main event, yes. UFC.
That's right.
Like, this felt like McGregor versus Mayweather. Like, we're talking all out. Like, I know the show is called All In, but they went all out for this match.
They did. They had Team Nightmare is what they were, and then I don't know if it was Team Aldous or something, but they did a huge tunnel walk, and then Hebner did a thing on the microphone. He's like, "Hey guys, this is for the NWA Championship. This is a big deal. I've known both of you for a long time, so let's keep this one clean and let's go." Yeah. And it was so sick. It was so, like, I forgot about that part about it, but that just put it over. Like, I felt like either it was NWA who set this up, or if it was Kody that wanted it to go this way, or whatever. But I felt like this is what a big fight feel in pro wrestling is, and they did it perfectly there.
I mean, this might give me a lot of shit. I don't know, but I'm gonna go out and say that this was my favorite World Championship match in the last 5 years in professional wrestling.
Wow, that's a bold statement.
I mean, It's very bold, but it had a big match feel. I think Earl Hebner getting on the mic prior to that very well helped. And I think most importantly, what this match did that made it seem so big, and this was such a big deal to me, I feel like in a way this was Cody Rhodes doing WWE, but doing WWE 10 times better without them.
WWE better than WWE does WWE.
Yes, dude. And I think that right there was the game changer because Nick Aldis, like like everybody knows Magnus from Impact, and people don't even realize this. They kind of forget, but like you look at Cody's corner, it's former WWE guys, right? It's like WWE, WCW.
Yeah.
You look at
Nick Aldis, Magnus.
Nick Aldis, yeah. You look at his corner, and you're like, oh wait, Samuel Shaw. You see Sean Devar, like you see some of these guys, you're like, oh wait, Jeff Jarrett, like that's some Impact guys. Like it almost felt like we were getting a cross promotion between two companies, even though they're not even in those companies anymore.
Yeah, right.
That's what it felt like to me. So it was actually one of my favorite championship matches, and I don't know if Cody bladed himself or took like a blood capsule or whatever, but the fact that like the lights went out for a few minutes or whatever, something happened on the feed, and sure enough, he came back and he was all bloody. Like, this match was just incredible. Yeah, it's my favorite world championship match in 10 years. I would say 10 years, and on top of that, I don't think this is it. I think the NWA is just getting started, and I think we're going to see NWA very, very, very much involved with Japan, Ring of Honor, Impact. I think we'll see NWA like.
Well, I feel like this is like this all in, and like Cody and the NWA, like this could be like a brand new take on the NWA the way it was. Like the old dead brand of like the territory stuff, I think is even more positive. Like that whole brand, like, you think of the territories and the NWA, you'd go like all over the place to defend it. But I think now is the better time, like perfect time to do it, because Cody, who put on the show, this All In show, which was like the World Series of everything, right? All the independent World Series, they get them all together. Now he's the face of the NWA, so they can send Cody anywhere to any promotion, and they will have him because Cody's got that reputation now with All In. He's a great champion. He can defend that title wherever. If he wants to do another All In event, maybe All In 2, I don't know. I just feel like Cody in NWA is like a perfect thing here, and it's so great because if you think about Cody and his dad and his father and like holding the same championship as his dad.
Yeah.
Isn't that such an amazing moment?
It is. And one thing I kind of want to pick your brain for a second. I would love to hear what you think about this. So I know Triple H has like been notorious working with like Evolve, Progress. Like he's kind of like going into the UK scene. Do you think that maybe Triple H can strike a deal with Billy Corgan and have Cody Rhodes show up in NXT and maybe do North American Championship versus NWA Championship? Like, is that something that we might see one day? Do you think maybe Billy Corgan could get involved where his title will show up on WWE television? Because I think when you look at it from this, and I want to get your opinion because I look at it from this perspective, I feel like WWE always wants to be involved with whatever is going on in the wrestling world, and we kind of saw that with the UK scene, and then pro wrestling evolved from UK. Now it's like, okay, the UK stuff is fantastic, it's big, it's growing, but now there's a big scene, still within the United States that's starting to blossom. Do you think we'll ever see that crossover? Do you think we'll see the NWA Championship on NXT or WWE? Do you think we'll see that crossover? What are you thinking?
I think it's a bold move by WWE. I mean, with the UK guys, they have a lot of freedom, I think what it is. So those guys still work their independent stuff. Like you have Pete Dunne, I think, still doing independent stuff in the UK, right?
Correct, yep.
And I know Tyler Bate was doing stuff. And like you see these guys who are still doing those independent stuff. I mean, maybe now it's going a little bit less since they have the UK brand, but I feel like WWE needs to open their door to relationships like this, where you have a guy like Cody who can come in, he can have some really good matches, like kind of like a Brock Lesnar deal, right? Hey, sure, we're going to have you do X amount of fights, do whatever else you're doing because it's perfect. You're killing it. You're doing everything awesome. Just come in, do your thing, and do your big dates, and then you can go on and do whatever. Like I feel like they should have more of an open door policy, and like even like Chris Jericho, and we saw him later. We'll talk about that, but even like with Chris Jericho, like he has that open door thing where he can go and do other things, but he still comes back to WWE because he's WWE loyal. And I think Vince McMahon needs to realize that these guys are and I feel like they're realizing it now more than ever, because back in the day when you bring a guy like Kevin Owens or Adam Cole, those guys would have been repackaged into a WWE brand. But now they're using their name to build them up as, you know, they already have a following, so why not just use that? That's perfect. Yeah. I'd love to see them do it. As Vince McMahon rules the world in WWE, I don't know if it's ever really going to happen. If Triple H could somehow make, do it and say NXT. If it's NXT, that would be the way to go. I don't think Kody doing it for the main roster, but if they did, I think it would be smart. I mean, back in the day, WWE had a weird relationship with NWA. They had some NWA titles on there, but I don't know. I'd love to see it. Will it happen? I don't know. I mean, Triple H would be that guy that could make it go down.
It's funny because we saw Jushin Thunder Liger on NXT.
Exactly.
Against Tyler Breeze.
Right. WWE needs to do more of that stuff to realize that, like, these guys have a following. It's huge. This is a big deal, and make it happen. So, I don't know. I'd love to see it, but we'll see. Triple H is the man that could make it go down.
Well, if NWA is officially revived and they're doing well, I can see either one of two things happening. WWE and NWA become very big competition because NWA can pretty much be the leader of the independent world, or WWE could eventually buy NWA to stop them from being competition. So either they could work together or maybe a buyout. But I mean, we're talking years and years from now. I think Billy Corgan, David Lagana, I think they had a very heavy influence on this match. And the best part is, for anybody who, kind of going back to what Brandon said about the show, like not knowing much, NWA was documenting this entire journey through the 10 pounds of gold. And to see that conclusion yesterday, I mean, not only did they told the story themselves without being on weekly television. So imagine what they can do if they do have a television show. And, I think the best part about NWA eventually looking for a TV deal, I know that's something that they're really trying to figure out. If they're able to do live television like they plan, I mean, imagine Cody Rhodes being able to show up there in ROH, and you have ROH guys showing up to NWA and New Japan and Impact and AAA. I mean, now we're starting to see Impact and Lucha Underground work together. Like, the crossover stuff is crazy. I think NWA could be the central hub for all of that. I mean, I would love to see what happens.
I think NWA right now is basically just the NWA World Championship, and that's like the brand right there. And they're using that title to, like, say, okay, this dude's recognized as, like, I feel like NWA is like the independent authority right now, is how it should be. Like, when you get the NWA title, like, you're known as, like, okay, this right here is like a big deal. Like, you are the independent representatives. Like, that's how I would treat the NWA right now. It's like, have it be I don't even know if I'd run it as a promotion, really. I just get like a few guys under the NWA umbrella and then have them represent NWA and then send them out to do great things everywhere else. Like, take that NWA title and be like, okay, so people want to fight for this because this means that you are the top independent wrestler if you have this NWA title. So that's what I would love to see. I don't know if they're going to get a whole deal, a whole promotion, how it's going to go down. You said they were talking about TV, but I think just build up that NWA title to be something that people want. And I think you're going to, whatever you do with the promotion after that is going to be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, can we talk about CM Punk's amazing return last night?
Shut up. Come on. He didn't come out. He was not unless he was one of the penises. It could have happened.
Do you think so?
No, it was
because I heard he's been a dick lately.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's talk about this because we had Adam Page and Joey Janela, the Chicago Street Fight. Then we had the Resurrection, and Adam Page won, but we got I don't know. We already talked about it a little bit at the beginning, but yeah, this match was great. This Chicago Street Fight was insane. Joey Janela took a crazy scary bump where he fell off the entrance ramp through like 2 tables, but he almost missed it. I don't know. Joey Janela is a crazy man. He does whatever, dude.
His girl is crazy too. It was perfect.
Right. Yeah.
Penelope Ford, man. She jumped off the turnbuckle.
She was doing all those flips and stuff. Yeah, she's crazy.
Yeah,
man. She's crazy.
That was a great match. I think that was match of the night. I don't know why.
Oh, you liked it? All right. I'll give it to you. Except for the Joey Ryan stuff.
Yeah.
All right. We'll talk about Jay Lethal and Flip Gordon. This was your ROH World Champion, so we had another World Championship match here. This was pretty cool. A lot of people gave this a lot of crap because this was the ROH showcase per se, right? So this is what's gonna, if you're thinking about ROH, if you think, should I watch ROH? I want to tune into this match. Well, they turned Jay Lethal back into Black Machismo. They did the comedy stuff, and then Flip Gordon Flip Gordon came out with Brandy Rhodes, and then Jay Lethal ended up like stealing her and calling her Elizabeth and stuff, and it turned into like a comedy thing. Was this the way to go? Was it to make it a comedy thing, or do you put Jay Lethal in this situation where he's like super serious and he's a big time fighter? I don't know. I see both sides of the coin here, but in the end, it was Jay Lethal trying to be entertaining, and it was entertaining. So I don't know. It's a tough question here. Should you have made ROH more of a serious role here?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if I was restructuring this, right, if I had this match before the Hangman Page match, like before the whole Joey Ryan thing, this would have been the worst part of the show. But then the penises came down the ramp, and that kind of ruined it for me. So I think those were the two worst parts of the show. I would say just because Flip Gordon and Jay Lethal weren't in a penis costume, I think that's the only reason why it's not the worst part of the show, because it was bad. And it's a shame because ROH has always been known as just a good wrestling product. They've never been known for like the entertainment stuff. And now the one match that's, kind of influenced that has influence from ROH based on the fact that they're two ROH guys, it just didn't do it for me. This was a sleeper. Definitely sleeper.
It definitely was. I felt like it could have been. I don't know if you would have put someone else in there, but Flip Gordon, I feel like they had the story here. They did it. It was a decent match. It was just too much of the, he went to the split personality, Jay Lethal, then back to Black Machismo, and then back to Jay Lethal. So it was kind of just, again, this was not the best way to showcase Ring of Honor as like that. I guess you got the Young Bucks, and there's like other.
And you can't forget Flip Gordon was doing the Hulk Hogan gimmick.
Yeah.
With the big boot and all that. So that just kind of contributed.
I mean, you did have some other ROH people featured here. It wasn't an ROH championship match, but again, I felt like they should have showcased it more as like, okay, this is freaking amazing wrestling. We need to watch ROH. That's what I would have showcased here. But I don't know how much influence ROH actually had over this. Maybe Jay Lethal was just like, hey, can I defend my title? And they're probably like, sure, why not? Let's put it on this big platform. So maybe, I don't know if ROH had production. I feel like ROH was producing this as far as like cameras and lights and all that, because it felt like an ROH, like the look, So I don't know how much influence they actually had on it. Are you familiar at all?
From what I was told, they recommended the camera crew. They recommended the production companies to help them out. But I was told ROH had no physical or financial control of the show. So they didn't fund anything. They just kind of gave them some advice and some resources. Okay. It kind of looked like an ROH pay-per-view, but again, what do we know? Like, that's
I just mean production value was there, so it was really good, so I'll give it to them. But I feel like
I see that influence for sure.
Yeah, but I feel like if they were going to showcase it, they should have done like 5-star banger wrestling match here. But after this, though, I mean, how can you compete with this match right here? Was like, besides the Okada Marty Scurll match, I think Kenny Omega and Pentagon, I mean, bro, that match was insane, dude. I don't know what else to say. Pentagon, dude, he needs to be picked up. I know he's on Impact right now, but if he ever went to WWE and they let him be who he needs to be, again, I don't think he should go to WWE, but if WWE could somehow get some brains in them and say, whoa, we need to let this guy flourish here, give him the moon and back, that's what I would do. I would let him go crazy. But him and Kenny Omega killed it. I think Pentagon is so good. I feel like he's like top tier right here. One of my favorites to watch. Anytime he wrestles, he's so good. He's got a unique look, great personality. I just love it. Kenny Omega, of course, you know him. He's 7-star Mr. Kenny Omega, killing it out there. So it was great. At the end of this, though, the lights went off, and they played this off perfectly here, though, because I love this segment because the lights went off, and I think it was I can't remember who said it. Someone on commentary was like, "Oh, well, hey, forgive us. This is our first All-In event. Like we're gonna have technical issues." So they played it off as like it was just some lighting issues there, and then they were like, "Oh, we're back." And then Chris Jericho was in the ring. He took the mask off, Codebreaker, and then he said, "I'll see you at the Jericho Cruise." How insane was that? That Chris Jericho showed up here.
Beautiful. I didn't expect it. I wasn't even thinking about it. It wasn't on my mind. It's really nice in this situation to actually watch a wrestling show. And I don't care what anybody says because this just happens with how good the internet is. You could be a Twitter follower of somebody and not even be like a hardcore fan and still get spoiled when it comes to pro wrestling.
Yeah.
I've been on Twitter, like doing my live tweeting or whatever. I did not see one person talk about Chris Jericho being at All In. So they kept it really, really well under the wraps. And I think Chris Jericho himself, man, like I wish people really understood. He saved the pro wrestling industry by showing up in other places. And
What's insane about this, if you didn't know this, Jericho got on a flight to go to a Fozzy concert immediately following this. He was still in his makeup and everything. Like this, that's why people were like, "Oh yeah, Jericho." There's no way Jericho's going to be here. He's got to do a Fozzy concert in Kansas City. So he went on a plane from Chicago to Kansas City, bro, and now in makeup, in the Pentagon makeup, and he is awesome. He's obviously, this is a way to promote his cruise, which is fine. I get it. Him and Kenny Omega have unfinished business, which is cool. I think it's great, dude. I think it's awesome.
Don't you think it's kind of awesome how like Kody and the Young Bucks produced this event, and I almost feel like they could have been selfish and just made it about them, right? But like, don't you think it's amazing how every company that was involved somehow won? Like New Japan obviously having an incredible showcase with like Okada and Omega, and then of course like ROH. Yeah, I mean we don't necessarily agree with it, but the fact that their world title is on the line, the fact that the IWGP Intercontinental Champion shows up and attacks Kenny Omega, which is now promoting his Jericho cruise. I feel like what they did was so healthy for the industry because they really, really, really they promoted everybody they work with. It's not just it wasn't like, I don't feel like they were taking a dig at WWE. I felt like they were like, listen, like it's okay for everybody to be together. You know, this is the crossover event that we're not necessarily promoting as the crossover event, but we want to show you how good pro wrestling could be when you have all different walks of life together.
This is like the independent wrestling Avengers, right? You put them all together, and you get the best of the best here, and that's what it was. And then, like you were talking about, we had Okada and Marty Scurll. This was a big moment here because Marty was trying to put himself as a heavyweight here. So he's a junior heavyweight right now. So, you know, in New Japan, it's kind of a thing where you're known as a junior heavyweight. You're kind of a junior heavyweight for a while. And, you know, you saw guys break out of it. Like Kenny Omega broke out of the heavyweight and became like super awesome and amazing, and I think this is Marty's time here. He had this awesome match with Okada. This one went 26 minutes long, and I don't feel like it was 26 minutes long. It was just that good of a match. I mean, Okada's awesome, Marty's awesome, so I think this was, I don't really have anything to say other than Okada won, and Marty wants to be a heavyweight now, so I think that's good for him.
Yeah, good for both of these guys. I would have loved to see Marty beat Okada. I knew that wasn't going to happen, unfortunately. But, man, great match. Just overall great match. And what's really nice about this match that I just have to add, I think Marty has come such a long way from TNA Boot Camp.
Right, yeah. We were talking about that last night, the British Boot Camp and all that.
Yeah, man. Like, now you look back and you see this guy, we kind of seen how much of a star he became. You know, I have his merchandise, and this just shows you how big this industry has become. You know, you could buy a shirt for a guy that's not in WWE, and now he just had one of the biggest matches of his career, and I think he had one of the best showings of his career. And, man, that entrance he had, I mean, just everything in general, just kudos to him, man. He's just great. Like,
I think at one point he blocked the Rainmaker and opened his umbrella, and that was pretty sick.
With the all-in umbrella.
Yeah, the all-in umbrella. That was so good. Yeah. He's putting himself out there. He's being a top-tier guy. It's like those guys, like you never, like who would have expected like these guys, like all these guys to come together, like the Young Bucks and Marty and Kenny and Kody and all of them to come together and like make a name for this. It's just insane that this happened. So, then we get main event time. We got the Golden Elite versus Rey Mysterio, Phoenix, and Bandito. This match was cut short. It was still 12 minutes long, but it seemed like they cut it short. We didn't get the confetti. They had to end it quick. Golden Elite won. So, brother, let's complain about putting ourselves over on our own show. Kody and the Young Bucks both went over on their own show. Does this bother you that they put themselves over on their own show? Are we starting?
Normally I'd say yes. Like okay. So normally this would bother me because I'm like, okay, they're booking their own show, whatever. The NWA Championship told a story, so that makes a lot of sense. The Young Bucks winning didn't necessarily have to. Like, I don't feel like they needed that win. It wasn't, like, a big deal. But at the end of the day, if you're in the main event and it is your show, how can you lose? You know what I mean?
Right.
But I feel like it kind of – and I hate saying this because I'm going to bring it up again, but the Joey Ryan thing irritated me so much that when I actually got to this main event, I was still kind of bothered by that. So when I saw the result, I really didn't even care about the result, to be honest. The only thing I was glad was that match actually did not main event, thank God. So I was still kind of salty. It's kind of shameful as a wrestling fan to be salty, but I was.
I get it though. I get it. Where people are mad. I don't think people really even cared because they put on this tremendous show here. I don't really see any negatives of them winning. Like at all. Like you said, it would have been fine if Rey Mysterio, Rey Fenix, and Bandito would have won, but. I mean, it is what it is. Young Bucks went over. It would have been nice to see the ending, though, because they had to cut here. That was one of the problems with All In, was they had to cut here because they were running out on time. So the way pay-per-view works, I mean, I know people are like, well, it was on Fight. Why couldn't they just go forever? Well, the problem is when you buy pay-per-view, you have to buy that time slot. So you have to pay for, like, the hours that you use on pay-per-view. So they couldn't just keep going. The show was going to get cut off. If you ever watched WCW back in the day, they had a pay-per-view where their main event got cut off, and they had to give it away for free on TV. Now, they were professionals here. I think like 2 minutes into the match, I heard the ref or somebody yell, "Go home, go home, go home." I was like, what? They got to go home already? So, but they did a nice heartfelt speech at the end. They thanked everybody. The crowd chanted "All In" too. They teased an All In 2. We don't know if there's going to be an All In 2. They thanked everybody. The Young Bucks were funny. They said, yeah, we'd love to kick Ray's ass even longer, but we had to end it early. So it was good. It was awesome. It wasn't a show-stealing main event, to be honest. I mean, I would have loved to see that ending. It would have been sweet to be there live with the confetti and all that. That was cool. Honestly, I think, I know it would have turned into an NWA show, but I would have liked to see Kody winning that NWA title, confetti. Here to put the NWA title in the main event, but I think it would have been a great ending, to like close it out and be like, yo, Kody just did it. He won the big one. And now he's going to do great things. I don't know. I kind of feel like the NWA title should have main evented.
Imagine if that match main evented. Imagine if the confetti fell down. Imagine if they did a speech and everything was on pay-per-view. And then just imagine for 1 second if a guy like Kevin Owens, there so many people were talking about this. They're like, oh, Kevin Owens quit. Maybe he'll go to All In, whatever. Maybe WWE would kind of tie in. But imagine if Kevin Owens came after the confetti, after the speech, as like a masked person who jumped the guardrail and attacked Cody Rhodes. Or imagine if Neville made a debut. Or imagine CM Punk ending the All In pay-per-view. These things would have taken away from the fact that it was the NWA main event. But nonetheless, I mean, that was such a great match. I think the tag team match was good too. But like I said, I still kind of go back to that Joey Ryan thing. It kind of made me salty, and you could have literally put anything in the main event. It would have fine. I thought Kenny Omega would have been great in the main event too. That match was a banger. Okada could have made, I don't know. But again, the Young Bucks, it was their show. They wanted to be in the main event. No, you can't complain with that. Great match. Wasn't the show-stealing match, but it wasn't a bad match. I mean, they went 1,000 miles an hour and got all their stuff in right away. So, I mean, it was good. It was a nice finish. I would have loved to see the ending, but overall, I got to give this this was a A+ show here. I don't think anybody that ordered it would be disappointed. I think the price tag was fine. The experience was fine, and I mean, overall, I'd love to see them doing all in too. I mean, I guess I could throw that to you when we're closing this show down here. But do they do All In too? Would that be, or do they just go all the way and make a promotion? What do they do here? I think going All In for a promotion is a great idea, but it's just way too soon to do that. I don't know what the financials are. I don't know what the pay-per-view buy rates are. I know that they sold out an arena, and I know that they weren't even sure if they were going to broadcast the show. My answer to you about All In 2 is this. If we didn't have this broadcasted and this was just a live event, it would have been the biggest L that the pro wrestling industry has ever taken, because that's how good the show was. The world needs to see it. Mm-hmm. All In 2, I would love everything that they did structure-wise. I think if they do All In 2, it has to be a little bit shorter in terms of time duration, and we need to see those title belts being defended. We need to see IWGP title. We need to see ROH. Honestly, you got to even have Impact Wrestling. I think All In 2, the only thing missing from All In was Austin Aries, but aside from that, I think All In 2 would be incredible. And one thing that I said in my video, and this was the best thing that I'm going to leave you guys with in this episode, I said in my video that people go to WrestleMania week not even for WrestleMania. They go there for the indie shows. And All In has become the new WrestleMania because all those indie shows that you would go to during WrestleMania weekend have basically come together and created one amazing super show. And that's the best part about what we saw. That's what I felt like. I felt like we took the best of WrestleMania weekend and combined it with the best of the best from outside the United States and North America. So I feel like we got some really, really good content. I think All In 2 should be a yearly thing. I think All In should be a yearly show with StarCast. It just reminds me of like a really cool fan festivity weekend. I know I had the chance to go, and then work kind of came up. I missed it. So if there is an All In 2, I'm going to treat it like it's WrestleMania, and I will be there because if I didn't get to experience this on TV, I'm not sure if it would have been as big. And I think if they can do this on a yearly basis, I think not only do they create a awesome thing for fans to come together, but I think they create a platform where wrestling companies could come together. And I don't think creative matters in this situation. I think freedom matters. And I think we saw pro wrestling with freedom for the first time in a very, very, very long time. So I'm all in.
I think yearly event sounds perfect to me. I think what's crazy is that traditionally, and even Vince McMahon had said this, September is like the worst time in pro wrestling for like an idea to do something like this. September is the worst, but because you think about it, the main season is WrestleMania season, so you got that. And what's great about All In is they don't get that stigma now that, like there's a lot of independent promotions that run during WrestleMania weekend, and they sell out their shows and they do great, but that's only because WrestleMania is in town. Now with All In, it was on September. There was nothing else going on in the area. They weren't running during a WWE SummerSlam weekend or running during a WWE pay-per-view thing here. I think this is perfect. I think the first Saturday in September, they run All In. They just do a mega indie show. They call it All In. They do it every year in September. I don't think it needs to be its own promotion. I feel like they can just build it up the way it is. I mean, they have that global platform. So going forward, how would this change professional wrestling? I think for the better. I think All In 2, they use Impact to build stories. They use ROH to build stories. They use New Japan to build stories, Lucha Underground, AAA. They use all those, and they build some stories within those promotions, because then we have an ROH match featured. Well, we've built this on ROH television, so we already know the programming. So you get those ROH fans to come over. Oh, New Japan, we're going to have an Okada match. Oh, well, we're building that Okada one in New Japan already, so we know that he's going to All In. And we're going to get that story told. Oh, Lucha Underground has a featured match? Impact has a featured match? Well, we've built that on Impact. Impact's going to promote it. They're going to get their star featured. You said Austin Aries. Perfect example. Could have had him build a story on there and then build it up to defend his Impact title at All In. It would have been perfect. And I feel like that's what All In 2 would be perfect. I think that's the only thing that All In missed would be like promoting within ROH, New Japan, Impact, all that stuff. I think it's perfect. That's what I would like to see going into All In 2 would be being able to build those matches on other television, if that's something that other television would want. And I don't know if ROH would want that, but I don't see why not, because they're going to promote their brand to their fans and all that. I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's a good idea, man. I think the pro wrestling world needs it, and I think hopefully Vince and the WWE open up their eyes, because we're at a stage where pro wrestling is hot right now. And, I think at times I'm losing hope with WWE. Like, I feel like I'm losing that connection to WWE. Mm-hmm. And I'm a WWE loyalist. Like, I watch WWE and TNA, that's it. I watch a little bit of New Japan when I can. But TNA and WWE are the easiest products to find in the United States. Mm-hmm. They're on 2 major networks, I would love for this to be a yearly thing. I want this to be a thing where I can meet up with other creators and other fans and other people and like go watch good wrestling. And like I said, man, people go to that WrestleMania weekend. It brings friends and families and wrestling people together. Now it seems like there's something new that can do that. My only fear, and I'll leave it at this, my only fear is that WWE knows how good Kody, the Young Bucks, Marty, Kenny, like I think they realize how good they are, and what they just did was so big that I think WWE at this point may very well give them multi-million-dollar contracts. And I think I think we could very well be seeing a invasion angle very, very soon. I think they do stick together, but I do think when they stick together, it's because they're going to get something really big out of it.
We'll have to see it, man. I think right now is the best time for them to flourish, do their own thing, continue to be successful, and that's the best thing I could ask for. So that's where we're going to leave you guys here with All In. But before we wrap it up, I want to tell you about our special guest next week, Ango. Are you excited for this?
Oh, my gosh. I'm super excited.
Well, we don't know if it's next week. Maybe. We have it penciled in here, so it's not for sure. But we do have him for an upcoming. We got that green light saying he's all in on #1 Contender, if I could use that pun. No? No thoughts?
No, probably not.
Okay. Well, he is confirmed. So we are going to have former WWE, former ECW, former WCW, former Impact Wrestling, Stevie Richards. Stevie Richards is going to be on the show here. Steven Richards. You know Stevie. He's a legend in the biz. He's been around everywhere. Now he's doing a lot of stuff on the internet. He's got a lot of tech stuff. He's got a YouTube channel if you guys haven't followed. He plays Fire Pro Wrestling on there. He's got a lot of tech stuff. Dude's crazy. He's doing everything. So he's going to be on the show. If you guys are looking for a shoot interview podcast, talk dirt, that's probably not what you're going to get here, because that's not how we want to run the show. We want him to just come on, want to talk with him, have a bunch of fun conversations, and just talk. Just have a conversation, because that's it.
What do you think Stevie thought of the penises on the stage?
I don't know. He's an ECW legend, so we'll have to see. Well, we might have to ask him. We might have to ask him. We'll see here.
Alrighty.
So that's where we're going to leave us. Again, we got all those links. If you guys are watching anywhere, listening anywhere, all over, Anchor, Breaker, Google, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes. It's everywhere. YouTube. We'll link everything out there. We'll put our Patreon out there as well. So you guys, if you want to support that, if you want to send any questions, we have an option for that too as well. There's just all kinds of stuff. So make sure you guys check it out. We'll link everything on the description of this, whether it's Anchor, Google, iTunes, Spotify, Stitch, all that stuff. You guys click on those links. Thank you very much for watching us, listening to us. However you found it, let us know. Ango, close it out here for us.
Jeez, you always ask me to close out the show, and I just don't know how to do that. So you guys should follow me on Twitter at Tango with Ango.
Wow.
Follow Anthony
goes into business for himself.
Hey. You guys should follow me at Tango with Ango. Follow Tony at TonyPizzaGuy. And we'll see you guys next time, man. I'm really excited with how the show is coming out, and I could just ramble on and on and on about how awesome the show is. But you guys can do that. You guys can leave a review on iTunes, leave a comment on YouTube, and all that good stuff, all those platforms. You know where to find us. #1 Contender. Oh, baby. Don't miss it. We got you, baby.
All right, that was bad. That was I'm never letting you do the outro again.